Right, so I'm going to spend the next hour or so doing kind of introduction to JavaScript and React. So over the next half an hour, I'll do some basics about JavaScript, and the second half an hour I'll do another kind of walkthrough React. I'll focus more specifically on task number 7 because I've seen that some of you are struggling with that tasks. So I'll try to give some kind of live coding about how to create components with React, how to send properties, you know, these kind of things, right? Hopefully this session is being recorded, which means that I'll send it over to you on Slack afterwards, so you can read it again, and you know, right? So the first thing, let's do some JavaScript. I'll show you how I like to play around with JavaScript whenever I do some showcases or talks or anything like that. So, you know, JavaScript runs on a browser, so the only thing we need is a browser. We don't even need Visual Studio. We could use Visual Studio, but this is so basic that let's keep it simple, right? So what I used to do is I used to open the DevTools, you know how to do it with inspect, right? I open it on a new tab. You can see that you can change the arrangement on the top right corner. So let's keep it just as big as possible. So so on the DevTools, we got a few tabs on top. There are multiple ways to do that. My favorite one is...
Sorry, just on the projection, you can't see the top menu.
You can see the top. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I will do nothing else on top. So yes,
okay, fine. Just
you see on top, you get, thank you, Sultan.
Okay.
So you get something called sources. So if you click on sources, it's kind of hidden. I don't know why this is so hidden, but it's very useful. So on the left-hand side, by default, probably you'll get something called file system or something like that. But if you click here, you can find something called snippets. This is very useful. Here's where we can just write JavaScript. So here we can just start coding. So usually what I do every time is I just create some curly brackets because this creates a new kind of isolated context. You don't need to learn that now, but you know, just do it. So now we can do things, right? We can do stuff. So we can add a console log, right? We can show some contents. Console log, hello, Odiri, right? And then we can run. So we can run the example. It's so I'll tell you the shortcut to run the example. So you can press, yeah, exactly. You got it here. Thank you. So you can run the script. You see that button? Or either press, in Mac is Command Enter, in Windows I think it's Control Enter, but you see, you run it, and you got it here, right, at the bottom, on the console, on the output. Why I love that tool that much? Because we can add breakpoints. In the long term, you will add lots of breakpoints to see what's going on. Right? So how can I add a breakpoint? So look, if I click on the left-hand side, on the line number, if I run again, I'll use the shortcut, right? You see how can we run snippets, but I use the shortcut to make it just easier.
Can you say where's the snippet? Where do you find it?
So it's create a snippet. Yeah, you create a snippet and then you get an empty canvas.
In
sources. Sources.
source?
No.
Yep. And so again,
What?
so it's the second tab usually
Yeah.
on Chrome. Sources. Click here on the left hand side because you'll get different tabs. It's very hidden. That's the only issue. And one of them will be
New snippet.
snippets. Okay, cool. So here we can just write JavaScript. It's the easiest way to play around with JavaScript. You've seen that I just added a breakpoint, and this will be very useful to debug, to when we play with variables, with loops, with arrays. We'll do that in a minute. We'll see how useful this is, right? Right, so let's do something very, very basic. I will create a function. This is introduction to functions in JavaScript because you just started playing around with functions. So function, then we set the name of the function, welcome, for instance. Let's keep it super, super simple. Every function that has this structure in JavaScript. We got the function, tag, the name of the function, then with parentheses we could pass some arguments, but we will keep it easier for now. And then here we can just return something. So let's return hello world. So what happened if now I try to call welcome? I invoke welcome function. So what will you expect to receive at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah.
Here you go, right? That's the easiest interaction with JavaScript possible. There is nothing simpler than that. You define the function and you invoke the function. That's it. That's it. Let's go one step beyond. So let's imagine that we want to, instead of hello world, we want to welcome someone, right? So
Why is that a single quotation mark and it's double quotation mark? What's the difference?
no, it's the same. Okay, that's a good question. You've seen sometimes we're using double quotes and sometimes we use single quotes.
Yeah.
In JavaScript, they are exactly the same. You can use either.
Yeah.
I prefer single quotes. And the reason why I prefer single quotes is because they are simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if you want to say there was apostrophe S, you would have to escape it with double as opposed to.
Yes, yes. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. If you want to escape characters, yeah, you're right. You need to escape them. Okay, that's true. But to me,
It's just a preference.
it's a preference. Yeah, that's syntactic sugar. It's not a big deal. I prefer single quotes because it looks simpler. Also, it helps me because if I see something like that, right, this looks like a
Just because you got doubles.
yeah, like a single double quote, but there are two single quotes, which is wrong, right?
Yeah.
So simple. But again, don't worry about that. You can use whatever you want. Cool. So let's make it more complicated. So imagine that instead of hello world, we want to welcome someone. So hello world, Melissa, right? If I run that, again, you can expect at the bottom what?
Hello world, please.
Brilliant. Still simple, still easy, right? Let's make it more complicated. Let's add a variable. Instead of Melissa, we want to set hello world to different people, right? So we can pass variables. You see the parentheses, this is where we pass the variables in JavaScript. So we can add a variable here called Melissa, as an example. So then in the function, here we declare the variable. The variable will point to Melissa. Doesn't matter if this is called username or this is called person. I don't mind. You can set whatever you want. That's the name of the variable, the reference to that string below. So I call it username for now, right? So do you know what happened if now I run the command again? So let's change Melissa by Peter. So if I run again, what will it display? Still Melissa. Why?
Because we're passing the string, Melissa in the string.
Yeah.
We're passing the verb.
Yeah, correct. So we are passing Peter here. That's okay. However, we are not calling Peter. We're still calling Melissa. So if we run again, still Melissa here, right? So what we need to do to fix that is we need to replace Melissa with username. Exactly. So let's do that. How can we do that? There are different ways to do that in JavaScript. I'll show you a couple.
Hash covered brace. Like hash and covered brace.
Yeah, that's the advanced way. So yes, I'll go there in a second. I'll show you the most fundamental way to do it, and then I'll show you your approach.
So can I just ask, you know where you put Peter in there, you can even call that a variable, an argument, it's all the same, right?
Yeah, variables and arguments, they are the same.
Exactly the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, depending on where you look at on the internet, they will call them variables,
Yeah.
or they will call them arguments.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just don't know how to navigate around DevTools. I'm still.
So you need to open the tools. You know how to open your tools? Okay, so
but
you go
still
to sources.
Yeah, but it's still.
Yeah, snippets. That's it. Create new snippet. That's it. Thank you. Right. So I'll show you two ways of merging plain strings with variables or arguments. So the first one, look, it's quite simple actually. Let's remove Melissa, and then we can add a plus because we are joining tokens. Right? That's the old way. The classic approach to concatenating strings plus variables, right? Hello world, Peter. You see it there. There is an alternative. I don't want to make this, I don't want to give you too many options to do the same thing because I reckon that may be confusing, but I'll give you an alternative because that's kind of powerful. So,
Just send that.
no, that's okay, that's okay. I don't need it. That's okay. No,
It's
you can use it. You can use it. That's okay. No problem. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all. No, Besna, you can use it. I don't need it.
I had a
Battery
problem.
will last,
I
hopefully.
have my battery don't have a problem.
Right, so the second alternative is we can use what we call string interpolation. Maybe you have heard about that. This is quite new, but that's important. Why? Because I'm sure in your first job interview, they will ask you, can you tell me what do you know about the new JavaScript ES6 patterns? This is the most simple thing that was introduced in JavaScript. That's why it's important to remember. This is called string interpolation. Look, I'm going to leave that line for reference. I'm going to comment it out. But I'm going to add below the new way to do that. Look at the syntax. So we can use backticks. These are not single quotes. Please note the difference. So this is a single quote. These are two single quotes. And these are two backticks. Depending on your keyboard, they will be in a different location. But what we can do here is we can add a string, the same thing, right? Hello world. That's the same, right? Up until now, that's literally the same. However, now, instead of adding the plus and stuff like that, we can add dollar symbol. We open and close the curly brackets. And then here, we can pass
Using.
correct, exactly, username. Look at that. You see, even, so DevTools already changed the color because it understands that this is an argument, it's a variable. So that's exactly the same. So we can now run this example again, and you get exactly the same, right? These two lines, line number 3 is exactly the same as line number 4, but slightly shorter, slightly more readable, subtle, right?
What does dollar sign stands for?
So that dollar, this is a new way to use this interpolation. So when you use the dollar plus a curly bracket, that means that whatever you put inside will be interpolated, will be translated.
So is that a template literal?
That's a template literal, exactly. Exactly.
Is that it goes in from the code, from previous lines or whatever, where it finds, if it's username, if for example, if username is not an argument of the welcome function, if it's outside of this function, like we imported a picture.
Yeah,
like
this is
title,
the same.
And then it's gonna call that.
Yeah, that's the same. I mean, that's a good point. We could.
It's just global. It's just a global call in whatever.
It's not a global call. So when you declare something called username, it will search a variable, an argument called username. Do we got it here? Yes. Then resolve it. What happened, for instance, if we do that? So question, will this work?
Yeah, I think it will.
It will.
Because inside a function you can look out, but outside you can't look in.
Correct. Exactly. You got it. So this will work because it will find a variable called user email. And it will say, okay, user email. Where is the user email declared? Is it here? No. No problem. I don't give up yet. Let's keep looking on my file. Do we have any variable called user email anywhere? Here you go. It is. Right? That's why now, if we run this example, well, what will this print?
Hello world, contact email.
Here you go. That's it. It's not complicated, right?
What's let there?
Let.
Let you.
It's the same as bar, but it's the new
But there's a
ES6 version.
difference.
There is a difference. I'm not going to tell you the difference now because this is going to be mind-blowing. It's about scoping. For now, you can assume that let and bar are exactly the same. And since they are exactly the same, quotes, please use let because it's the modern way.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm interviewing you and you use var, I may think, okay, you haven't touched JavaScript in 5 years. But if you use let, I say, okay, he knows about modern JavaScript. No difference, but it's just about the feeling that you give to your environment, right?
What does that let stand for?
Let.
Something.
Just
Let-
learn
let
let.
is just
Don't
a
worry
verb.
about what it
Yeah,
stands
yeah,
for,
yeah.
otherwise you're going to be
Yeah.
like, because it don't stand for anything. Because there's another one as well.
Yeah, there is also const, but let's keep it. More specifically, I want to talk about functions.
Yeah.
And the reason is JavaScript is a functional programming language. That means that everything turns around functions. That's the most important piece of functionality in JavaScript, the functions. You will also hear that some people call them methods. A function and a method is the same. Right, so we can make it, let me remove that. Let me go back to the Peter example. If you have any question, just
But do you know when they do use methods, it is only when there's like an object involved, isn't it? It seems to be like
that's the same.
It's the same.
It's the same. Yeah. Functions, methods, exactly the same. Yeah. So, and the reason is because functions were not created by JavaScript. They were there in the fundamentals of programming, right? So depending on the language, they call them functions or method. So that's why if now we receive a Python developer, they will call them differently. But at the end, the important bit is to understand the principle, right? What you get and how to call it. So why do we have functions? Because functions are very useful to reuse pieces of code, right? Some of you are working on task number 7. So that's equivalent. So task number 7 talks about reusing components in React. So functions are about reusing logic. In other words, I can call the welcome function as many times as I want, right? So right? We can call the welcome function multiple times. So what will happen if now I run the snippet? What will you get?
Welcome Peter, welcome John.
Peter John.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Not necessarily actually.
Yeah.
One return already.
Yeah, no, so I'll tell you. So the problem is, so this is just showing a line, it's a single line, so probably it's just keeping the first two. Yeah, that's not great. That's not what I wanted to do. But yes, but in reality, okay, the way to prove that we can call the function multiple times, even though on the console we just get the last one, we can add a breakpoint. Look what happens if I click on the number, on line number 4. That's a breakpoint. Breakpoints will be extremely useful to debug, to understand what's going on. I'm sure most of you are still using console logs sometimes when you want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So in the future, you will never ever use a console log. Actually, if you are working with a senior developer and he's using console log, he's not a good developer at all. Because console logs are dirty. I'm tired sometimes when you are visiting a website, you open the DevTools and you see lots of console logs messages. I mean, that's super dirty, right? You shouldn't do that. That's not clean at all. So the cleanest way to debug your code is adding breakpoints because they are extremely flexible. I don't have to change my code base. I don't have to add a console log. I just need to add a breakpoint, then run the snippet. Cool. And look, you see? So the execution has stopped on the line that I highlight. And here, the positive things about the breakpoints is that we can inspect. We can check our variables. Look, the first time we call welcome, look, you see here, so DevTools is telling us, hey, this is the first time you are calling this function. You are receiving an argument, a variable called Peter. Right? Cool. Fair enough. Once I click on the run button again, look, that's the second iteration. Username is John. If I click again, username is Mary. What happens if I click again on the run button?
Go back to Peter.
So that is the run button. Oh yeah.
Or just stop.
If I run again, as we are not calling the welcome function anymore because we call it 3 times, it will just finish. That's it. Any question?
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't understand if I click on this breakpoint.
Yep.
It doesn't really highlight the line for me.
It
just
doesn't
puts
highlight, it
breakpoint.
will highlight the line as soon as you run this snippet.
But how can I run? It's paused or...
No, you need to click there.
Ah, there.
Yeah.
How do I open the window of the run and other things?
The thing on the right hand side,
Yes.
that should open automatically as soon as you are the breakpoint. Yep.
Wait, so how do you open it?
Yeah. So to add a breakpoint, just
Click on the number.
click on the number, but you need to click on the right number because if I click any on a random place, it will stop as well, right? So of course we can add multiple breakpoints.
I have totally different.
So tell me,
I have like 4 breakpoints in it.
you can have as many breakpoints as you want. You can delete them. Click again. You see?
See, that's the thing, so they're not going away. What does a breakpoint do? Just
So
say
a breakpoint stops,
that
pauses the execution of that
There's
snippet.
nothing-
of that code.
Yes, it pauses it, so that you
I
can
can go step by step.
You
read.
can go manually. You can just click manually and then.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So is that a way to debug the code? To see
Yeah, here we're debugging the code because we can stop and we can inspect the value of the variables. Right? Question for you. Look, I added 2 breakpoints, line number 4 and line number 7. Which one will be triggered first? 4.
I'm only goes till 7 and it
4.
stops, right?
Everybody agrees? You don't agree?
I agree on starting at 4. Maybe not.
Okay, let's run it. You were all wrong. To stop on line number 7. Why? Let me explain. Because this is a function, and functions are not executed until someone invokes them, right? So this is a function. This is not going to be executed by default until we run this line. Because of that, first we run this line, and then I believe it will stop on line number 4. Does it make sense to you? Yeah. In other words, I'll give you another example.
Because you're calling in the function with welcome Peter.
Yep.
On line 9.
Yeah, let me get rid of the breakpoints. Sorry about that. Hello? Yeah.
yeah, it's the same problem.
Yeah, come on, Google. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to add another function. So we have a function called username. Sorry, a function called welcome and a function called vi. Right? And I'm going to add a few breakpoints.
Can I remove it?
So yeah, sometimes, yeah, if you get adding lines while the breakpoints are active, sometimes Google crashes. So we recommend you to copy everything, sorry, to cut everything and paste it again. Yeah, not great.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Right, so look at that. I've added 3 breakpoints. Actually, 4. And you are going to tell me which is the execution order.
Welcome Peter and welcome John.
No, not line numbers. I want numbers. 11,
11 and 12, yeah.
12,
11 first and then
4
12.
and 8.
11, 8, 12, 8.
Because you're only calling welcome. You haven't called by.
Yeah.
You haven't called the function by,
Okay,
so
so-
nothing's enough.
Right, so that's fine. Let's okay. Look at the bottom. I'll add all the options. So let's start this way. No, this way. Sorry. Right, Norbert, tell me.
11, 8, 12, 8,
11,
8,
8,
12,
12,
8.
8. Okay, fair enough. Next one.
I agree with what he just said.
Chris agrees.
Yeah, we pretty much agree.
Everybody agrees on that.
I say 11, 12.
So
He is a man of 10 years experience. So
no, but
we probably should have bypassed him.
yeah. Okay. Right.
A function.
But it will, because you haven't called by. So I
Why
don't
would
see
you
why the
say
first
that?
function would run.
Because he said that last time.
Say it again.
You didn't, when on the last one you said you haven't invoked it, and
Yep.
we haven't invoked it as the first function, so
Yep.
that's never going to get called.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. So does anyone disagree on that?
There is a different opinion.
Okay. So tell me your opinion. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Just
Rush.
based on what you said previously.
Okay. So okay. Tell me your order.
11, 12,
11, 12,
4, 8,
4,
8.
8. Okay. So can anyone tell either Norbert or Rush why, under your point of view, not necessarily correct, he is not right?
Do you remember when he said that you have to call the function for it to work? Yeah? So do you see where he says,
Pretty much.
welcome, welcome, welcome?
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't got anything calling by, which is the first name of the first function. Do you know what I mean? So it hasn't called the function.
Number 4 is never going to be executed because you never asked in the code to be executed. It's
Yeah.
just there. You
Yeah.
haven't invoked the function.
Oh, really? He hasn't given any other instructions.
He should write by.
And
by
also,
I don't know.
After
Rush.
after 11, because on line 11 you call a function welcome with an argument Peter, and that invokes the function on line 7, which returns hello world plus Peter in this case on line 8, and then the function closes, and then the next thing you do is actually maybe even 11. I'm not sure, but yeah, it could be even 11, 8, 11, 8, 11, 8 forever.
11, 8, 11, 8 forever. Okay, so let's write this down.
Could happen. I'm not sure, but why not?
But after we call.
But after it actually stops, the whole thing stops, right? So nothing happens after it. That could be another.
Right. So, okay. So I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm just going to run the snippet and we'll see who is right, if any. So we run it. It stops on 11. So everybody agreed on that. Cool. Lovely. But then we started to disagree. So Norbert said 8, Raj said 12,
Yeah.
and Sultan said 8.
No, because I modified my point of view at the very end, saying just it's gonna stop at 8.
It will
So
stop
it's
at
gonna
8.
Stop after 8.
So that's
because
it.
you're gonna return already.
So that means 11, 8. Nothing else will be called.
You mean you are going to press play again?
Yeah, of course, all the time.
Okay,
Until
so
it
no,
stops.
Then in that case, I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Maybe
So
again.
that's
Maybe
fine.
even 11, 8 forever, probably.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay, let's leave it there. Right. So
So
we're
you're at 11 now.
you were at 11. That's correct. And then, so what I think it will happen is, as we're calling a function called welcome, the code will move here
Yeah.
because we're calling the function. Consequently, the next line to be executed will be this one. That's correct. Right? You see, Rush? Right? And then, once the function is called, the control will return to the next line. So we left it here on line 11. So now it should return to line number 12. Here you go. Right? And we start again. We are calling the welcome function again. So let's move to the top to line number 8. And that's something interesting, because so Norbert, you said 11, 8, 11, 8.
No, 12, 8.
So sorry, excuse me. 11, 8, 12, 8. That's it? I think you are wrong.
It's going to be 13 now.
No, there is no breakpoint at 13, so it will never stop there.
It'll go to 4.
Yeah, stop you mean, but you will execute.
It will only stop on the green lines,
Oh, I
because
see.
these are the lines that I wanted to inspect the execution. It will never, ever, never stop on line 13, because I didn't add a breakpoint. However, I think the solution that Norbert originally proposed is very accurate, but it's not perfect. Can anyone? Number 4. Why number 4?
It's a
Because you got a
break.
breakpoint. You want to inspect.
Yeah, but if that line is never triggered, the breakpoint will never ever
I see.
stop there. Are we calling the by function anywhere? No. So the line number 4 will never be executed, never. However, I think the main problem, according to your original proposal, as soon as I resume the script, it will be done, because it has stopped 4 times. However, what happens if I click again? Pay attention. Stop again on line number 8. So that's the correct flow. Can anyone except Norbert explain why it stopped 3 times on line number 8 instead of 2?
You just stay there. No matter how many times we executed this there.
Yeah, it stopped 3 times because we are calling the welcome function 3 times. We are right, we don't have any breakpoint here, but still this line is executed, and as soon as this line is executed, the control will be given to the welcome function, and then it will stop here again.
What if you click again? What if you start again?
But
If
there
I
is no more welcome, so nothing will happen.
if I click again, okay, you tell me what will happen if I
With
click.
N.
It will go to the end.
Just nothing really happens
Yep.
because the code is executed.
The code is
completely.
complete. Yeah, there's nothing else to do. Any question?
Where do I see the return value? Like you have hello world Peter.
Yeah, we just got because this is the problem with Google Chrome. So it just shows the last result. So as we are returning the result 3 times, it just ignoring the previous 2.
Or maybe if you select the top and don't use top
Is it
as a
because
filter, below the output.
Here, no, no. Yeah, no. I'll investigate that. I'm pretty sure there is a way to show everything, but yeah, for the next time. I mean, that's not relevant now. Before,
I don't understand. I had this code just exactly the same.
Yep.
And I did the 3 breakpoints on number 8, 11, and 12. I didn't put the other function for number 4, and it for me it executes all the way.
Can you
It
show
just
me?
returns the
Can you show
last
me?
value. Yeah. So if I press enter,
Yeah.
it just
Can
just
can you
It's
press enter?
like
Can you press enter?
that.
No. But this is not enter. You need to click there.
Yeah.
Click. Yeah, it
I
stopped.
have
No.
money.
It stopped. It stopped. It definitely stopped. Debugger post. Look at line number. You go there. See the tiny arrow. You can keep playing. The thing is, right?
And I would like to learn how to use this tool because I don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
properly.
Let's catch up later because we are recording that.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
catch up later. But yeah, something I would recommend you if you didn't that already is to switch to the dark theme in Chrome.
I would like
Because everything looks to me, at least personally speaking, it looks better.
better, yeah.
On the bright one, nah.
how do you do that?
How you do that? That's a good question. That's a good question. You can do it. So if you go to, I think on the 3 dots on the right, I'm just thinking now, I may be wrong. If you go to settings, look at that. That's it. It's the first, at the very beginning, theme. By default is light. You change it to dark. Cool. Right. So before jumping to React, I would like to talk about data structures. Data structures, they talk about how do we store the data with JavaScript. Do you know what type is data? Is Peter?
String.
It's a string. That's correct. That's correct. String. We know it's a string because it's surrounded by quotes, either single quotes or double quotes. Quotes at the end of the day. What happens if I do that? What's 43? It's a number.
Integer.
Integer.
Whatever.
Yeah. I accept both. What happens if now I run this snippet?
Hello.
You get an error. You get an error. Hello world.
Hello world 43.
Hello,
You
world.
just get an error though, because like an integer isn't a string, so it won't. Like you have the function as a string. not
Correct.
as an integer.
So that's a very reasonable point of view. Let's run it and we'll argue the answer. It's still working. So the money is right at some extent that this is a number, so we are mixing numbers with strings, but JavaScript, or at least modern JavaScript, is smart enough to be able to mix strings and numbers, which is nice, right? Because we don't need to do any conversion or anything weird. It just works, right?
What if you put in a what? Put an error instead of 43? If you put in 4, the what 4 with it what?
4.
Yeah.
Okay, good question.
That will put that as a string.
As a string,
So it does it automatically.
I don't know. String.
No, not necessarily. It's going to return undefined because it's not a string. It's not a string. It's not a
But
like undefined.
So does it recognize that you made a mistake and still do it?
There's gonna be hello world.
I think just
Hello
hello
world.
world.
So no, because 4 is not properly. It's not a proper syntax for a string.
I think, and I may be wrong, this should throw an error. Why? Because 4 is expected to be a variable. Remember what we said before? Where is the 4 variable? Is it here? No. Is it here? No, 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 no. There is no let 4 equals whatever. This is a variable. Right? No one has declared that variable. So I see two options. That either throws an error or shows something really dodgy, like hello world undefined or something like that. Let's see what's the answer. It throws the error, right? Which is good because this is strict. 4 is not defined. So how can we fix the error?
You should initialize
Let's go.
Yep.
4 or declare 4 somewhere.
So
What happens if you just initialize 4?
like that.
Like, don't give any value. No, just
Let-
Let 4. Okay. Cool. That's a good
Or
question.
maybe even let 4. Yeah.
What's the value of 4 at this stage of the journey?
Undefined.
So independent.
It's undefined.
But at least you've got the variable.
Okay. I believe in that case, it depends on JavaScript magic, but that may probably display hello world undefined. Let's have a look. Here you go. You were right. Hello world undefined because 4 is still undefined. However, if we provide a value, as you may expect, it will transform the 4 integer into a string. So this will return what? Hello world 4. Brilliant. Sorted, right? So we've seen strings, we've seen numbers. Let's talk about something.
We can also pass like 4 plus 4 and then it will execute.
Okay, good point. So what happened if we send that? Hello world 8.
Yeah. That's good.
Will it display hello world 8 or hello world
4 plus 4.
4 plus 4?
I think
Eight.
yeah.
I think
8. Why?
It's an arithmetic.
yeah, it's
Very
mathematical.
I think hello world.
Because
was
it's
possible.
executable.
Do you remember? You are going to ask me the question. Do you remember when we had the two breakpoints, one here and one there? Which one was executed first? Welcome
If we call
first.
The function, if we call the function only when we call when we call the function is executed.
Exactly. So line number 7 will be executed first. As this is the first thing happening, it will evaluate 4 plus 4. Consequently, which value will be here? It will be 8.
Already.
Well, let's try it. Let's try it. If I play this example, stops at line number 7. That was super expected. But now let's inspect the value of the argument username. Look at that. You see it? 8. So it ran this line, then it detects that there was something to evaluate, 4 plus 4, and then the welcome function has received 8. Consequently, this should display hello world 8, as Vicky originally said. Let's go one step further. Let's talk about objects. So we've seen strings, we've seen numbers. It's okay, we'll use them a lot. But in reality, most of the time, we need to manage complex data. For instance, we don't manage the username. We manage an object that hosts all the user details. The username, the email, date of birth, blah, 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 blah. So that's a collection. Whenever we have to create a collection, we create an object. I'll give you an example. I'm going to create an object here called user. Objects are identified by curly brackets. So if I now create a couple of curly brackets, opening and closing ones, now I can just add a list of properties in here. For instance, let's add the first name. First name, John. Then of course you can add the last name, Luis. And then you can add the age, and you can add the email, blah, 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 blah. You got it, right? Any question about how to create an object?
Why didn't you use colon and you use just?
Yes, because when you create an object, every property is separated by a colon.
It's the syntax,
That's how objects work.
except the last line.
Except the last line. Not anymore. Technically speaking, you can add a comma on the last line as well. Can anyone figure out why this is today accepted? Why we can add a comma at the end if there is nothing else afterwards? That was added in 2011. And the reason is because without the comma, because strictly speaking, that was the only accepted syntax until a few years ago. Imagine that now I want to move the email to the top. I select the line, I go to the top, I paste it,
And then it breaks.
and I broke it. Why I broke
Or
it?
maybe you want to introduce a new variable after, like push something in after email.
Yeah, there are multiple reasons. This is the main one, that we tend to move properties up and down. And it's too much effort, right? Because you need to, oh God, I forgot the comma. But not even that, you need to remove it from the last one, right? It's painful. That's why now, boom, you can add a comma at the end. So you don't care where the properties are. You can keep moving them. Still valid, right? So it makes your refactoring easier. That's it. Cool.
Yeah, plus they look identical, like units.
Yeah, okay. So you are going to solve that problem. So I'm going to call the welcome function. I'm going to pass as the argument the user. And I want to display, this will be the user. So does anyone know how to display the first name of the user?
This is dot notation.
Dot email.
Dot email, not the first name.
No,
Oh,
first
dot
line.
first name.
Correct. user dot first name. Look, Chrome. Chrome is already suggesting, hey, I'm sure you want to do that, right? You can just type enter. It's good, right? I mean, that's good. Right. So let's run that and see what happened. Here we go. Can we display the last name instead?
Just change the last name.
Yep. Works. That's the way we manage objects. You remember yesterday, one of the questions was about that, right? Display the first name of the user, something like that. That's it. Super easy. User dot first name, user dot last name. Got a question.
How do you display all of it? Age, email, first name, last name? You put it all in the
All together. Okay, cool. Give me a second. I'll go back to there afterwards. Do you think this will work? Look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to rename the argument from user to my user. Will this work? Yes. No.
What have you done? Sorry.
So I rename user on the function
Okay.
to my user.
Yeah.
No.
No. Yes, no, why?
No,
No,
it's not the same function.
It's not the same function. No, listen, the function is the same. The function is welcome. I haven't renamed it. I just renamed the argument.
But all the variables are under user rather than my user. So shouldn't it be let my user equals and then all the
In theory, yes, but
That's a good point. That's why I give this
you are
example.
calling function welcome, and inside the function my user is linked. So it's
Yes.
properly positioned.
Yeah. So when we create a function, that function doesn't care, doesn't know what happened outside, doesn't know.
Just put an argument inside and
It's an argument. So you can declare whatever. You can put something shit if you want. Doesn't matter. It will work. It will work always, right? Because that function doesn't know anything about the outside world. Doesn't know anything, right? Because of that, you can rename the variables as much as you want. So still works, right? Obviously, if I change that, will it work? I've renamed the argument.
no,
No, why?
because you need to change it in the string to my user again.
Yep. So what do I need to do to make it work?
My user again.
Yeah, my user again rather than just
Exactly. Exactly. So functions are isolated, but inside of the function, the naming should be consistent, right?
I still don't understand where you've got that let user bit, why that bit doesn't change to. I know it's sort of treating that as the data that goes with that,
Yep.
but wouldn't it be best practice to name that the same name if you were looking at, say you had loads of different.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is about best practices. If you want to keep it simple, just use the same. That's fine. I mean, I just rename it to prove that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Right? That's it.
Why is that the case? Is it because it's anticipating what you're trying to do?
What do you mean?
Because if you're saying user again,
Yep.
it knows that you mean user.
Yep. No, because that user belongs to that variable.
Yeah.
So we have two variables with the same name. One here, external, and one here, internal to the welcome function.
So that welcome user what you're calling is just the function one, isn't it?
Yes. That's here we're calling the function, and that user corresponds to this user.
Oh,
So in other words,
I thought that corresponds to the top
to
function.
this one, no. No, okay, we'll see that. So, okay, good point. So this is my user again. Will this work?
So you don't pass any values in.
So what will happen if I run this function?
You get
My
nothing.
user.
You get nothing.
Hello world?
Nothing, hello world,
My user is not.
undefined?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello world.
Yes. So yes. So you are completely right. So at this time, the first line that will run is 14. We know that, right? We understood that. The first line is 14. And then it will say, okay, call the welcome function is here. But then send my user. And then it will say, okay, but where is my user? My user, my user, my user. It's not, it's anywhere. It's anywhere. It's here, but this is private. You don't have access to the content of the function from here. So this should throw an error. My user is not defined. Here you go.
But now if you change let
Yep.
user
Yep.
to my user, then that should then work, shouldn't it?
Here you go. It works. Of course.
It makes sense. So because if you didn't have let, it would just automatically, when you have my user and welcome, it just automatically use the my user for the function.
Like that? I don't know what you mean.
Why do you even have to use
What-
my user?
sorry, wait a second, Sultan.
So like if you were to remove like the let my user, so basically like the code isn't like locked into just my user.
But why is it locked? It shouldn't be locked. I mean, you are declaring the variable here. You are calling a function with that variable name, and that's it. It shouldn't be locked to anything. You have freedom to decide the name.
The argument of the function, you can name it whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Here, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's whatever you want.
it's whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's it.
So that one isn't relevant.
So why does it even
Yeah,
matter?
that's a
to put it
parameter.
there?
The parameter of calling the function.
What do you mean?
Is that right? Sorry.
Argument.
Yeah, it's also called a parameter. Yeah, it's same thing.
When you call in the function, you place an argument. And the argument you want to pass into the function. But within the function, in this case, query is, what is that, a parameter? Or
So that argument matches this one, right? We call a function with an argument. That's the definition of the function, and that's the argument.
yes. But that argument within the function, query,
Yep.
is just merely like a link within the function to the
Yeah.
function itself. So why does it even have to write it out? Why do we even need that?
What do we need about that?
Yeah.
Because in real life, most of the time, your welcome function may sit on a different file, for instance, on a different component. So you may have to import the welcome function from the top, and then you won't have direct access to my user. So please note that this function may sit on a different file. That's why this is good for decoupling purposes. So this is one piece of code, and this is a separate piece of code. And this is the glue. So my user is bound to query variable.
So expand to welcome first, because that's the function name. That's what you said, that my user is the argument you pass into the function.
Yep.
Within the function, the query argument could be almost anything.
Yeah, the name could be anything. That could be
So
full,
why do we have to write it there?
Well-
why don't you just leave it empty?
empty. All right, okay, let's leave it empty.
Why
You
do
not
have to
pass
leave
it.
it
You won't
empty?
pass anything through.
Okay, we won't pass anything through. And how do we display the last name?
No, just dot
No,
last
that's what I
name.
mean.
Just delete query.
Like that.
No, in front of last name, delete query. Yeah, there.
Remove.
Delete.
Like that.
Dot last name.
Dot last name. Like that.
Uh-huh.
But dot last name of what?
Or it's just a syntax then.
It's not the syntax. So look, so this is, first of all, this is invalid. This is completely invalid. Look, it's red. You see? Error. Unexpected token dot. Because every time we add a dot in JavaScript, we need an object first. So we need a property. We need something. Object. Whatever. You see? Now, technically speaking, it's correct.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
It's not going to work, of course, because what is object? It's nothing. That's why we need to declare the variable here, user, and then
And what is the best practice? Use the same as the argument we want to pass in, or just create a function with a name you can use and remember and it's memorable to you?
make it easy. I mean, if I'm playing with users, I will call it user everywhere. user.
Yeah, but in theory, you're just creating functions after functions,
Yep,
and
yep.
then you are just creating objects
Yep.
and creating invoking functions and pressing different. Because let's say you have 7 different objects.
Yep.
I don't know, like user,
Yep.
and then user 1.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, let's do that.
And then your function could be anything.
Yeah.
So it may be best practice to separate the two things, so that you don't call it user, create something else.
But why not? Look at that.
Because you have other users.
Okay, we'll have 2 users. We have John and we have Peter. So now, what will this return? Let me scroll down a bit.
It's still gonna. Yeah, but now you don't have user. You have user 1 and user 2.
Yep.
Okay, in this case it's okay.
Yep. Welcome.
Because user in the function, it doesn't refer to any other object. But earlier on, if you would have had user as an object, and then you would use it in the function as well, that would have been confusing to have another user, let's say user 2.
Yep. You got user 2
and
here.
now it's okay.
But what's the question? What's the
It
problem?
has to establish best practice.
Yeah, so best practice to me is that. So we have 2 users, user 1, user 2, and then we can decide which one do we welcome. Do we welcome user 1? Pass user 1 as an argument. Do we welcome user 2? Pass the user 2 as an argument. But then the function itself, it doesn't care if it's user 1, user 2, or user 11. Just a user, right? That's why the name of the variable is just user.
We've got an error on this one here.
You got an error.
On code syntax error, identify user has already been declared.
Yeah, because you need, that's what they mentioned at the beginning. You need to wrap your code with curly brackets.
And Ricardo, what if we call user 1 and user 2 at the same time?
User 1 and user 2?
Yeah.
You mean, and then a new line like that?
No.
Within
Within the same bracket.
With the same brackets?
Yeah, user 1 plus user 2.
Plus user 2.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, what do you think will happen?
Error.
I think it should
I
be,
just want to see.
yeah, I guess it should be an error because it's 21 will be the first line, then this will be evaluated. We are trying to join 2 objects in a very weird way, so that shouldn't work. It should blow up there. I think it should blow up. Let's have a look.
Just try.
Yeah, it got undefined. That's the really weird scenario. I'll play a video afterwards that we watched some time ago. It's the best JavaScript talk ever, where the guy starts adding objects, subtracting arrays, doing weird things. I'll play it afterwards. Right. So, one more question here. Imagine that we want to change the structure a bit. Instead of having first name and last name, I'll keep just a single object for simplicity reasons. We want to refactor that, and we want to have that. Look at what I'm doing now. You know what I did here?
I did another object.
Correct. So we got an object, we know that already, but now one of the properties of that object is as well another object. So obviously we can nest objects, one inside the other one. This is why objects are very powerful, because we could host very complex data structures, right? So then you tell me, will this code work now? Sorry, let me remove that funny thing here. Yeah. What will this return? Nothing. Undefined. But undefined is undefined or is hello world undefined? Hello world undefined? Undefined?
Hello world undefined.
Hello world undefined.
John Lewis.
John Lewis. Why?
Just guess it.